Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for the up. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who. Wanna go, gonna glow.
Aloha and welcome back to another episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. Today we go over the upcoming Week 10 opponent, which is a Monday night duel with the Eagles in Lambeau, as the Packers look to lick their wounds from a disappointing loss to the Panthers in Week 9 and the gut-wrenching reality that Tucker Kraft is done for the season. And while they made no trades, they did make a flurry of moves to fill some roster spots as Kraft was put on IR. Christian Welch was released.
Josh Wiley and Aaron Mosby were brought up
to the
from
active
the practice
roster.
squad.
Yeah, and Welch was signed back to the practice squad, and former
That
Eagle
whole situation makes no sense.
Yeah, what's it called? Former Eagle tight end McAllen Castles, which I swear to God is the name of a villain from, or is the name of the main character from Andy Weir's next space novel. Okay, you brought up the Welch one, and my whole thing with the Welch one is, okay, I understand that Mosby was, I think, out of elevations, but why did you sign Welch to the active roster last week then just to cut him? You don't reset the call-ups afterward. You should have just... Honestly, you kind of almost could have Ben Sims Welch, in the sense that you kind of risked him to waivers when you didn't need to if you had just brought Mosby up in his spot instead of Welch. And not to say that anyone thinks the world of Welch like Joe and I do, but that's the kind of just roster inconsistencies that every once in a while Green Bay runs into, but they're still kind of baffling when they do it, because it's like they're usually a little bit more, they have a little more finesse and smarts to it than that. But I mean, it worked out for them on this one. Welch was able to be brought back to the practice squad, and yeah, Mosby was up to the active roster after he had exhausted his practice squad elevations for the season. As Joe noted, former Cincinnati Bearcat tight end Josh Wiley is brought up to the active roster to be tight end number 3. And, he brings a decent amount of athleticism. Not sure what he's going to bring as a blocker. He's kind of like a high-hipped 6'7", sub 250 tight end with short
I've
arms.
comped him to DeGuara or even Lucas Musgrave, or Musgrave light, if you can call him that. Maybe a little bit more in the blocking area than Luke. I keep wanting to say Lucas. Luke
We'll get
is.
to Lucas later.
But he's been in the league 2 years already, and he's bounced around to numerous practice squads. I'm maybe they got lucky with maybe this could be the Rasul Douglas type deal for him or something, but I don't know with him. It's definitely not a Tucker replacement.
The thing that's kind of funky is, like, Tucker was your shortest tight end on roster, basically at 6'5", and none of these guys. Wiley kind of showed it in college, but I don't think he'll be able to do it in the NFL as well, in terms of being able to take short throws and turn them into longer receptions, just because he is kind of long levered and high hipped a little bit, and he doesn't turn as bad as Musgrave does, but it's not like he corners like how Kraft could and really turn those quick hitters into big gains. The big thing here is that LaFleur cannot fall into the trap of thinking that any one of these guys is going to replace Kraft, and Musgrave is going to become your top pass catching option at tight end. And the big thing there is LaFleur cannot run him on the same kind of routes that he had Kraft running. We saw that as a rookie, and I know several people have said, like, and we both brought it up, their rookie seasons. they tried to force feed the shit out of the football to Musgrave for understandable reasons. Like they were thinking this 6'6" guy that can run a 4.5 40, he should threaten opponent down the seam. Jordan missed him a few times. Musgrave didn't run his seams right a few times, so they had some misfires there his rookie season. But if you go back and watch that
Didn't
23
stay on his
season,
feet when he caught the ball.
yeah, you watch that 2023 season though, there's still reason for fudge. All right. So going back to Musgrave as a rookie, you saw the downfield ability. Obviously the plays that stick out are he has some deep catches against Pittsburgh, against the Saints, and the big one obviously being the playoff game against the Cowboys. And the most important thing there is like you've just got to use him in that. If you're LaFleur, don't try to run him on short hitches or those quick outs or anything like that. Send him up the seam, use him as a vertical threat so that he's just running kind of thing, and fill in the intermediary with a Dobbs or a Wicks on the short routes and stuff. I do think LaFleur still comes up some really good schematic things, but what we're talking about here is all about knowing, understanding, and utilizing your personnel properly. And he's going to have to adjust. Kraft was sort of a one size fits all, hat that he was able to put over the top of this entire offense. And that's the biggest loss there is like you had an all in one blocker, short route, deep route running extraordinaire, and you don't have that anymore out of these tight ends. Well, at least so far as we know, like Fitzpatrick, he can't dig guys out at the line of scrimmage. I don't think Wiley is going to be that guy either. And Musgrave, we know he's out there to be in the way at most kind of thing. And be in the way is a figure of speech determining whether you're thinking in the way of the defender or in the way of his own running back. But,
Well, one of the guys that they signed on the practice squad seemed a little bit interesting when it comes to maybe being a blocker, and that's that Drake Dabney. Because
yeah,
he's got a little bit of size to him. He's 6'5", 253. He doesn't show much athletic wise, but it's all unofficial because he wasn't at the combine. This is from a pro day, but that kind of I know it's not going to be this week by any means or whatever, but it makes me wonder if he starts showing off in practice that they might bump him up as a Ben Sims type guy.
yeah. I mean, at this point, the Castles and the thanks for I forgot about Dabney because he came like after all the flurry of moves they made.
And
Those
they
two guys,
signed that Michael Wilson or whatever,
yeah. That
Michael Woods.
I think Woods is
Yeah.
more of just like you're elevating extra guys. You need people to just run routes and practice thing. Whereas Castles and Dabney have a real opportunity that, if Wiley doesn't cut it, one of those two guys, if they can pick up the playbook quickly, could make an impact. Kind of like in 2020 when they brought Dominique Daphne in midway through the season, and he ends up being kind of a key contributor down the stretch and into the playoffs of that team. So, that's kind
Who
of where
also
you're
said
at.
he would be more than happy to come back up and play.
That was funny. I like I think he's been coaching. I don't think his alma mater, but whatever division his alma mater's at. But I did like what Daphne brought to the offense, and yeah, like I feel like LaFleur has been searching for that kind of player since. But we'll see what they're
And
able
where
to
did he
do.
start his college time at? I can't seem to remember that.
I believe it started with an I.
Well, that doesn't matter because they both started with an I. Because didn't he end up at Indiana State?
Yeah, I think so. But so that's the tight end situation. Like I said, they do. I know a lot of people are out on Musgrave. I've sold most of my stock, but what people have to remember is he's still, even in his own Bambi falling over way, he is an athletic freak for someone his size. And he is someone that they tried to run a chunk of the offense through as a rookie, as he was like picking things up on the fly. And I know he's missed a bunch of his two first seasons to injury, but the good thing there is like neither of those have been due to like repeated soft tissue injuries that would sap his athleticism. He had
No, they were weird ass injuries.
he had the lacerated kidney, which You hope he doesn't have another one because you're running out of kidneys to lacerate. And, and then last year it was the ankle injury that, like, I've said it a million times, but it surprised all of us because it looked like a run of the mill ankle. And then after that first Vikings game, LaFleur's like, "Yeah, he's done for a while," and you're kind of like, okay, like, did it fall off on the side of the field? But
Yeah.
yeah, like, you've seen it. He's Musgraves had a couple deep receptions this season, against the Steel back to back weeks against the Steelers and against the Panthers. So you know he's not going to be the guy that you can just pump six balls to like you could with Kraft. But if he can catch you 2 20-yard passes, that's a big impact from your tight end at this stage of the game.
Well, like you keep saying, if they can scheme him open, which he's got the athletic ability to do, and he's got. I mean, I got to give the kid credit. He's got catching ability. He's got speed ability. He's got route running ability. It's just he has no balance, and it just if they can scheme him open, he could easily be somebody you can run the offense through
Yeah,
because he could easily slip into that Jimmy Graham type situation
yeah.
or what's another one off the
Like Cook,
off
like what Cook was supposed to bring the offense to a little bit.
right. But Cook had a little bit more of a friggin'
Yeah,
blocking ability. But it was a guy that Lance Kendrick. There you go,
yeah,
the guy that they signed with Cook. So he's got that ability to be able to do that stuff, and he can catch. It's not like he's a guy that can do, what we were talking about with Wicks for the last couple of years. He can do all the other stuff, he just couldn't catch the ball. Well, Musgraves can do most of all that stuff. So it's just whether or not they can get him into space and don't get cutesy with trying to force him to be an inline blocker and shit like that. So, or don't get cutesy with maybe the the Tucker push and
oh yeah, no,
and
that's
uh,
out. Like they don't have anyone to run that anymore. And I know
um
I know the Eagles have added talent in their defensive backfield. They traded for Michael Carter, they traded for Jair, but the thing is that still leaves them with question marks at their second corner spot. I know that Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean have been really good in their roles, but like they still have a cornerback two or slot. Like wherever those two guys play, the other position is a weak spot. And I think this is a week where LaFleur's got to dump the 12 personnel and just be okay living in 11 this week and just try to put as many good route runners as he can on the field. Especially,
unless he brings back the U71 formation.
right. And my only hesitation with that is I have no clue what offensive lineman we want to do that. The good news on that front is Banks's injury looks like it's not a long-term thing. I know it's one more thing on his record for this season, but stingers happen, they suck, and yeah, like people are like, oh, like why didn't he tough it out and go back? I'm like, if he had the kind where you lose numbness for hours, like you don't want him in a game because if you can't block if one of your arms is worthless. So it's a shitlock injury, but yeah, I feel like it's if they do a six offensive lineman, you probably want it to be Belton, or you do the thing where you put Belton in at right tackle and you move Tom around because
No, I have it completely other way. They have Donovan Jennings on there, who is an
hmm,
athletic type of a lineman that they could fit in there. Or I know some people are really not fan of his, and he really hasn't shown a lot. But because of injury, they just brought Jacob Monk back. That he could basically be that tight end type blocker on the end,
yeah.
especially when it comes to just running a run play or something like that.
Yeah, I just have no idea what direction they go in because LaFleur hasn't done it. And I usually
Oh,
lean
they
towards
haven't done
using
it since Sherman was on the team.
yeah. And I've always leaned towards using a tackle type because, that they're used to playing the angles on the perimeter and used to, even if you like pull, those guys know how to read the defense from that outside split and stuff like that. Whereas like a guard or center type, it's like sometimes they're a little fish out of water when they play that exterior position. But we'll see.
Sometimes, but a lot of times when they're in that U71, they are in a 3-point stance. They're not in
Yeah,
a stand-up position.
you and I, we could be. I mean, the most likely thing is they just don't do it. But if they did,
Oh, they're not going to do it.
we have no trend to go off of in terms of what they would hypothetically do. But yeah, I think you just go with 11. Especially, it sounds like Watson's okay. I know that his dad made this big stink, and I kind of agree with him that it was really weird how he got taken out of the game on the failed fourth down drive and stuff like that. And like Tazim was saying, like, and I know that this doesn't mean everything, but it's like he doesn't get hit in the head, he doesn't go into a pile, he doesn't like hit the ground, and he's like, it's a little odd that he got taken out of the game, kind of thing. And like you said, we don't necessarily promote the tinfoil hat thing, but it's like, okay, like what's going on here, NFL? Like, how does this happen and stuff?
You might not be able to answer it, but can they only do that if they think it's a head injury?
Yes,
Okay.
like it the because the guy stopping it is the concussion expert. So yeah,
Okay.
they can't be like, oh, it looks like he pulled a hamstring or something like that. That's the team if that happens, kind of thing. Like if the whole he's not moving well or whatever, like that's a team decision. But like I don't think you saw Watson until like a few drives later, kind of thing. But LaFleur noted that they're hoping to get Wicks and Lucas back. We'll touch on Lucas later. But if you get Wicks back, Watson's healthy, you have still enough player. And Golden is truly day to day and able to go this week. You have enough weapons on offense. If you're LaFleur, you got to open this thing up, especially because I know Philly comes in with this history of being like really stout on the front and stuff, and this
Mike went on
great
the
pass rush.
Fritz. The Matrix. The Matrix win.
Hey, daylight savings might only make the night start earlier for you guys, but for me, it's an hour later that we're recording this than usual. So the brain is a little fluttering towards off at this point. The vocabulary is limited, but so I mean, look at what Philly had to do. They had to bring. Well, first, the fact that they signed Zadarius Smith is sign enough that they're not pleased with their pass rush. And then he retired. They bring Brandon Graham out of retirement, who didn't play last week because he's got to get in football shape. I don't know what his chances are to play this week realistically. I think he'll try because he has an extra day and stuff, but I don't think he can play more than like 20 snaps unless like Philly is just up and they're like, go get conditioning in kind of thing. And then they just traded
Didn't they
for
also
Jalen.
trade for one?
Yeah, they traded for Jalen Phillips from the Dolphins.
That's it.
Which,
That's it.
highly talented pass rusher, but has dealt with injury the past few seasons. He's gonna be a pass rush specialist for them, kind of like how they used Hassan Reddick a few years ago, because he's not a run defender. He's like the skinny, high hip type of defensive end who gets washed out even by our offensive line. But they still have their two monsters in the middle in Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. And with the way that our interior O-line is blocked, I just don't think it's worth LaFleur burning plays on early downs trying to establish a run game. Like, this is one of those, if you get to 25 carries, it better be because you have a lead and you're trying to bleed the clock out at the end of the game kind of thing. This is one where I know he had a bad decision last week, but I'm so sick and tired of hearing even Packers writers, which ones you are, who are like, oh, like, why doesn't LaFleur throw, blah, blah, blah. I think that's more of a identity thing for LaFleur than it is truly a he doesn't trust his quarterback thing. But dude, whichever side it is, he better start trusting him because your ground game ain't good enough to do it, especially against this defense.
Now, one of these days I'm going to get a tinfoil hat and this is when I'm going to put it on. But I think it was on Lombardi's bar that they kind of mentioned it, that is it possible that LaFleur will call in the play and Jordan is audibly checking out of it. I can't say the other word for some reason all of a sudden. Checking out of that play, and that's what's causing a lot of the issues with the offense, because we saw it where we knew Rodgers was literally checking out of like the majority of the plays LaFleur has called, but we've seen how LaFleur can call a game because he's made the perfect game plans for Malik Willis last year when in the two starts that Malik played in. So is there a possibility that he's the reason why we can quote unquote say he's not trusting Jordan is because Jordan's pulling some weird ass shit at the line?
I would, I won't say it's not a possibility. It definitely is. But the counter argument I'll have is like there are numerous checked or can plays. And you can hear Jordan call can, which is the code word for like one of the ones is he can against Pittsburgh. He cans to the dig route that Dobbs catches and gets the offense past midfield on their first touchdown drive and stuff. And I know that's just one example, but you can tell when he changes the play. And this is one of those we'd have to be a fly on the wall to really know what's going on, because who's to say who is responsible for saying if they show a too high look, we are auto checked, like it becomes a run no matter what kind of thing. That feels more like a coaching thing than a quarterback thing. But I won't argue the point that if Jordan doesn't read the coverage, the pre-snap look right, or if the defense tricks him by rotating post-snap into a different coverage, Jordan, and that's the problem with LaFleur getting into these tendencies where it's like second and long and you show him a light box, he's going to run it kind of thing. And a good defense, what they're going to do is they'll just wait until you snap the ball and they'll just hang in a too deep look with the light box, and they'll just say, that's okay. Your interior O-line sucks at run blocking. We're okay with chancing that even if we're a step late to the line of scrimmage, we're still going to be able to cause some kind of disruption. Plus, Josh isn't seeing the holes very well. He's a little dinged up, all that kind of stuff, that he's only going to gain 3 yards anyway. And that's the big problem. And Bukowski pointed it out. I think Morley pointed it out, and a couple other people have noted like the problem with the Packers leaning on the run so much is they're just not creating explosive run plays like they were last year. And even last year, there was a little bit of like the advanced stat head saying like, okay, overall Jacobs is having a great season, but how much of it is like he's popping just enough 15 plus yard rushes to keep his average in the healthy range, whereas like he is kind of banging his head against the wall every other play kind of thing. And then you just get this spurt for 8, and then eventually it's like, oh, 20-yard run kind of thing and stuff. And you're just not getting even the 8-yard runs this season. Or when you do, you go and turn the ball over the next play. So it's like, okay, like, come on now, guys. And like, Dusty Evely broke it down, and no game is ever as terrible as anyone thinks, and no game is ever as great as anyone thinks. That said, the big piece here is LaFleur's got to go back to the drawing board. And the thing with him is he was ready to turn this offense into the Jordan Love show when Jordan Love was a first-year starter in 2023, when he had no run game after Aaron Jones pulled his hamstring. He had no veteran receivers who were healthy after Watson and Dobbs both pulled their hamstrings at the end of training camp. And you had 3 rookie receivers who, Lord knows if they were going to run the right route on a given play. And you were trying to feature 2 rookie tight ends in an offense that was, it was 2 steps forward, 4 steps back so often during that season until you hit Toyotathon. And so the problem for LaFleur is not only does he need to reassess how he calls his playbook, but also he lost Tucker Kraft, which was his most versatile weapon on offense. That said, as much as the Panthers put a lid on their offense, you have to leverage the speed threats you have to create intermediate and underneath route opportunities. You have, You have Watson and Musgrave, who are height, weight, speed threats at their positions. You have Golden, who has speed at his position, even if he's not as tall. Hell, you could even have Melton go out there and run a deep route for you if you really absolutely needed to at this point. So just, you can't
I
have any
have
more. Oh, go for it.
I have this play idea, and I don't know how it would work in the NFL. It might not even work in college, but I've thought of this all of last year and this year, and it's basically like a wildcat formation, but you have Jordan on one side, Malik on the other, and then like Josh Jacobs in the middle. Then you don't know who they're snapping the ball to. Are they sending it to Jordan? Are they sending it to Malik? Are they sending it to Josh? And then you have, but now it kind of sucks now because you don't have Tucker that can
That's
do a
where it
little
kind
bit
of
more.
and that's where it kind of falls apart a little, because it's like you're limited in what you're throwing out there for route combinations, but you can still make it work with like, so you're, for all intents and purposes, you have a two backfield, and then with the quarterback, and then so you still have a tight end and two receivers, or two tight ends and a receiver. But like, let's say you go with the tight end, two receivers, you can still throw. If you want speed, you can put Musgrave as the tight end and Watson and Golden out there as the wide receivers, and you kind of muck it up from there and stuff. But yeah, like LaFleur, in a way, almost has to start calling games like he's calling them for Malik. And that's not a shot at Jordan. It's just so much stuff has fallen off the table in the past week. The Kraft injury, your O line still hasn't gotten its shit together. Plus, you're playing a way better defensive front than you were last week on paper. Like, and that was the most disheartening part about that Panthers game, is how many times the Panthers broke through for easy pressures up the gut against this Packers O line. You've
Cough,
got to,
cough, Jordan Morgan, cough, cough.
yeah, like it, like that stuff can't continue to happen. It's time. Like you've got to figure this stuff out. You can't continue to let this go by the wayside. And weirdly enough, I do expect this team to play better against the Eagles, because that's just what they do. That's part
Yeah,
of the
no kid.
product. That's part of the product of being the youngest team in the NFL, is that your team does stupid shit in the worst moments, but because they're young and don't know how brave or dumb they are, kind of thing, they're gonna puff their chests out, put their hand down their pants, feel themselves, and be like, "Yeah, we measure up on this kind of game and stuff." And I do think that they're gonna put a much better foot forward. Is that going to lead to better play? Uncertain, but I do think that at least on offense, we're going to see a much better effort come Monday night against the Eagles. Defensively, we kind of alluded to it earlier. They're expecting to get Lucas back this week. And honestly, against this Philly offense, that's an absolute must. What's it?
Well, while you're looking that up, that should help with both the run game and
Yeah,
the pass rush, because we know Rico Dowdle put up 130 friggin' yards against this defense without Lucas. The Eagles have a much better running back in Saquon Barkley than Rico Dowdle. You're going to need all hands on deck for this. Now, this is also a week you don't sit Warren Brinson.
yep.
I don't care who you've got to put as an inactive. You don't sit Warren Brinson. All hands on deck.
Especially because Wyatt is still probably not 100%, and Wooden went down in the last game. I know he said he's going to play, but you don't know how limited or not limited he's going to be. You need, like you said, you need all hands on deck for this one, all the beef you can muster. And even if that means that you have to sit a Baron Sorrell this week, he'll have his time, but you need all the muscle you can get. And Devin Jackson put out a tweet how the Packers are, they're sixth in the league defending shotgun runs or something like that. Oh no, they have the lowest yards per carry in the NFL, but they struggle against outside runs. And what the Packers run into is they have too many guys thinking, I'm going to be the one to make the Superman play on this thing. And especially against this Eagles O line, you have got to stay gap sound against this defense. No hero ball. Everyone needs to play outside shoulder. And I think that Philly is going to try and do some jumbo sets or multiple tight end stuff. I think you have to dump the 4-3 under stuff. I applaud McDuffie for trying to make it work, but he's just too small to play that Sam linebacker spot. Like when Pittsburgh put their extra linemen out there, he got engulfed. When Panthers put their big packages out, he got washed down the line of scrimmage.
I'm
And I
surprised they haven't been incorporating Tyron Hopper in a little bit more, because
the
I
problem
know he's
is
a little bit underweight, but he's a little bit taller than McDuffie.
yeah, but he's not that. He doesn't have long arms either to really set the edge. I think this is where Lucas coming back really helps, because they did show what amounted to a 5-2 look in the preseason, where whether it's three defensive ends and two tackles or two defensive ends and three tackles, he just gives you more versatility in what you can do up front, and in terms of being bigger against the run. And if you can put an extra defensive lineman out there, you're just inherently bigger against a team that wants to run. And realistically, because of how the Eagles play offense, it's okay to have a fifth defensive lineman out there this week, because Hurts does a lot of things really well. The thing that he doesn't do is he's not an anticipation thrower.
Oh shit!
So
Yeah,
yeah, if you want to just have more guys up front to either stuff run lanes or to always be sending five guys at the quarterback and keeping, one of the linebackers as a spy, you can do that with a 5-2 front. And I think that it'll eliminate one of the nagging things that I brought up in my stales from the game, which is Halfley. When they go to a mush rush, he gets too conservative with it. And I think that you've got to stay disciplined. You've got to maintain contain on a Hurts. But what he should be looking to do is playing that 5-2 look and unleashing, whether it's Parsons, Quay, or Edge as that fifth rusher. That guy can go and fuck up the pocket. Everyone else maintains contain on the pocket, and then you can kind of still spy Hurts. You cannot let him sit back there and just have the opportunity to just lay balls out to AJ Brown, who I'm not sure is going to play because he missed the game last week with a hamstring injury. But Devontae Smith has been on an absolute tear the last 3 games, so they're going to need all hands on deck there. But you've got to create pressure on Hurts. You cannot just let him have 2 years of throw like they did in the playoff game. I know it had its moments, but like the only sack you got is because Rashawn literally pushed Lane Johnson into him, and it took him a year to get there.
yeah. I mean, and obviously having Micah helps a lot because he's used to playing Hurts twice a year, so he'll be able to bring some expertise in with that. And the Packers have really built up their speed guys this year. So, hopefully that contain can help a little bit more. But you're right, they can't go with that mush look, because it's not working for them. They
No,
don't have the corners for it.
yeah, and I didn't like it against the Panthers last week, because it's like, why give Bryce the ability to throw with the heat off? Like, you should have lit him up every chance possible. It was a mistake to play conservative. Frankly, it was a little Joe Barry-ish, and I was a little bit disappointed in Halfley for going that route. And that's why it's a concern for this week, because it's like, well, you did it against a not good quarterback, so what are you going to do against Hurts, who's a much better version, who's like the ideal version of what you want Bryce to be, kind of thing. So Halfley's, like I said, there comes a point, if you want to beat the best teams, you're gonna have to be willing to live and die by the sword. You cannot just keep it in your back pocket or sheathed all the time. You have to be willing to gamble and to bust every once in a while. Like, that's the thing, is Parsons, you can't help Parsons be blocked by playing him passively. You can't help Rashawn get blocked because you're telling him, oh, just sit out there 5 yards outside the pocket, make sure he doesn't get outside of you. Rashawn's good at containing the pocket, but also like contain by collapsing it in, and just have Edge or Quay with eyes on the quarterback afterward. And you know what? I know they're not the ideal situation, but all those guys in the back end are getting paid. You got to play like you're getting paid. And that's going to be the name of it. I know that they're down Hobbs this week, which means that they get into some gnarly. Well, does that mean that does that mean that Bo is up next or Kamal Haddon is up next or whatever? You're in that dicey straight now. Remains to be seen what they're going to do there. One note: Asante Samuel Jr. is supposed to come in for a workout on Thursday. The thing that the Packers can sell him on is he is
He'll start.
literally, yeah, like he is this close to starting. He is one more bad Nixon performance. He is, as long as, and I know he's clear for contact, but he has to get conditioned, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know
And
when
I,
he
I
will
was
play.
just going to say that you have to temper expectations. If they do not let him leave Green Bay without a contract, he's still not going to play this week. Because it's kind of like you were just saying with Brandon Graham, is
Yeah,
there's no way he's even close to football ready.
Graham played football more recently than Junior Samuels Jr. has. Like, I don't think he played since like week 2 of last year.
That I couldn't tell you because I haven't paid attention to it much. But yes, he's younger. He's much younger than what Brandon Graham is, but he just got cleared for working out and contact.
Yeah,
He may be able to, lift 300 pounds or, squat press 500 or whatever, numbers you want to throw out there. But that doesn't make you game ready.
yep.
That makes your
So
body feel better. But it doesn't make you game ready.
Yep. So they're going to have to deal with what they've got. And like I said, Halfley's got to deal with that. And we kind of talked about it last year where, he called games differently early on in the season, depending on if Jair was in the game versus if Jair was out of the game. And then he did get more aggressive with the guys he still had at, once Jair was like out. You're at that point now, Jeff. And you know what? You just got to live. You got to live with your fastball at this point. The curve, everyone's sitting on it at this point and they're just cranking it out of the park. Another one is and Olsen did a great job highlighting it during the game where Halfley shows that double A gap blitz looks so often, but he never sends it. And Carolina saw it at a couple points in the game, and they're like, "Okay, cool, we're running a dive right at it." And you had Quay and Edge who were like, "Oh shit!" Like they take a step back, and it's like, oh no, it's a run," and got to come up and try and hit a guy who's coming at them already. So Halfley's got same like LaFleur. You've got to break these tendencies. You've got to come out and do things differently, and there's no time better than now. You've got the extra day of like game planning to go into it. Like, I know that you never want to empty the playbook at any point, but this is one of those moments where it's like you want to step down, or you want to put your foot down and say, yes, we do deserve to be talked about as one of the best teams in the league. And you want to show that you do have an extra gear, an extra level to get to, especially coming off of a disappointing loss. So, I said it before the Steelers game. This is another one of those. I don't care how they do it. I just need them to win this game, especially considering how they fucked up against the Panthers. They have got to scratch, claw, bite, kick below the belt, whatever. Like, this is one of those games that, like, you just got to figure out how to come out of here with the win.
Yeah, and I kind of joked on the Lombardi's bar chat that maybe this is the game somebody pushes Bisaccia into a broom closet and locks him in there for a full game, because I have this funny feeling that LaFleur is relying on him way too much, and that's really hurting a lot of things with it. Not just for special teams, but because he's the assistant head coach, decisions are being made and everything else. So, you know, maybe it's time to finally cut the cord, Matt, and say, Rich, you need to concentrate a little bit more on your special teams and let me handle how the team should be run and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know how much more we can really talk about it. This is going to be the only other thing I gotta say is if you've got YouTube TV, you best just go find you a pirate stream or something because you are not getting the game for nothing.
Yep. They're Disney is pulling out all the stops to say that no, we're the good billionaires, like which they
Yeah.
are not. They're
I
neither
don't know if
side
there's
is
a such
doing great.
thing as a good
Yeah,
billionaire.
neither side is doing great, but Disney is being a bunch of little shits about this whole thing, trying to paint like, oh no, we're caring about you. They don't care. If they cared, they would be doing the we can print
They own
money. Yeah,
Fox too.
yeah. They would be doing the we can print our own money, we'll work the deal out, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. But all these ESPN PR tweets, they're all a bunch of shit. And no, YouTube TV and Google aren't like they're not great either in this case, but like this is definitely coded in a Disney identifies that YouTube TV is one of the like streaming services that they do not own or control, so they're trying to strong arm them into a corner. Honestly, the only way this gets resolved, the quickest way this gets resolved is if ESPN games just take viewership hits. And it's really shitty to say that, but that's the only way that the position really gets changed, because I do think YouTube TV is, in a sense, right not to cave to ESPN's demands, because ESPN's just like, well, we charge everyone this rate, blah, 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 kind of thing. And it's like, that's not how you negotiate on good faith and all that kind of stuff. But this is not a legal show. This is not
Well, one more fact
economic
on
show.
that is they also took a bath on the NFL Sunday deal, so they're trying not to take a bath on the Disney deal also. So, yeah,
Yep.
this isn't that type of show, but I'm just fair warning people, if you've got YouTube TV, you're not watching this game.
Yep. So, yeah. And like Joe said, I know we've gone for 40 minutes, but usually we're hitting close to an hour by the time we get into our over unders. But the thing is, like, neither team has practiced yet, so we can't tell you who's truly back. You know, is AJ Brown looking like he's going to play? Did he sit out on the first day of practice? All that kind of stuff. You know, what are the Eagles insiders saying? We don't have any of that information at this point, so we're totally in wait and see mode. And we're, you know, by the time you're listening to this, the Packers might have released their injury report already.
And by the time you're listening to this, Asante Samuel Jr. could be signed.
Yep.
So, all right, let's go ahead and jump into over-unders, and unless you've got a rant. People seem to love the Mike rants, so
I don't have one right now because like I said, I don't even have practice things to go. Like I said, my only thing is like I am begging LaFleur, like this is not the week to try and show that you can run the ball, because you're not going to. Morgan's going to get his ass driven 5 yards back on every other play. You hope that what's his face Banks can stay in the whole game, and if he can't, for the love of God, let Ryan play right guard. Like, stop trying to be smartest guy in the room and shit like that.
and
Like,
start using Kennard a little bit more. I understand that Morgan is supposed to be your guy of the future, but I think Kennard's been on the team long enough that, you know, he can start filling in some of these extra
Morgan's just
spots.
not a guard. Like, I know some people say like, oh, he's doing well. I'm like, your guard can't be getting put in the quarterback's lap every other play. Like, that's just unacceptable. Like, I don't care that he doesn't have mental busts or he's better in pass pro, but it's like, if Jordan looks to his right and Morgan is next to him on a pass play or a run play, that's a flunk for me. I don't give a shit if he's blocking the right guy or not. Like, you can't lose that much ground every other play. But all right, let's get into your over unders.
I actually had forgot that I was doing these. I didn't have any up, so I had to real quick do them.
You have
But
good ones.
mainly they're going to be offensive ones, just because that's the biggest question mark at this point. So my first one's going to be Romeo receiving over under 55.5 yards.
I'm going under because I think what's going to happen is he's going to draw Mitchell. I think the Eagles are going to put Mitchell on Dobbs, and they're going to say like, which is kind of funky to say, but you know, Watson is still working his way back, you know, from rehab and all that kind of stuff. Wicks hasn't played in 3 weeks. And I think they're just going to say, like, okay, we're going to put our best cover guy on Dobbs, and you figure out who's going to try and beat our number 2 corner. I hope to God they send Watson deep early if that's the case, if that's how they line up. because you want to get Dobbs on a lesser cover corner, but also if he's the one eating Mitchell, this is a game for Wicks. This is a game for Watson. Like, eat up that coverage.
I'm going to actually go over at like 60 because we know that Romeo is the safety valve of Jordan Love. So he's going to find ways to force it to him. You know, I kind of said that in our review of the Panthers game that it just seemed like he was force feeding Romeo. And, you know, I see that continuing on, even though Watson's getting more back in there and you know, you got Golden and maybe Wicks will be playing and all that stuff. But now that Kraft is down, he's down one safety valve.
Yep.
So I see him trying to lean on Romeo a little bit more.
And that's something that he
So
does need to break a little bit. He's veering a little into like Rodgers and Adams, Favre and Driver territory there, where it's like he can't be your binky. Like, it was fine early in the season because you were still distributing the ball around, but he's getting a little heavy-handed in that department. And so, even if it takes Matt taking Dobbs off the field, which I know isn't necessarily the smartest thing, but if you got to do what you got to do to break Love out of this habit as well. So, yeah.
for sure, and that's why I was kind of complaining about it against the Panthers, was because he had other shots that he could take, but it just seemed like he was concentrating on Romeo a little bit more than anybody else. So, all right. So my next one is obviously with Kraft down, they're going to be trying to bring in more from the tight end position. So I got over under 35.5 for Musgraves.
I'm going over because I think he should have opportunities against. I know Bond comes in highly regarded as like a two-way linebacker and all that kind of stuff, but Campbell is still a rookie, and yes, I know he's had some big plays, but he's still prone to some busts in coverage and stuff. And if you can get Musgrave isolated on him, Jihad Campbell is a lot like Edge, where he has the athleticism to run with guys, but his brain, he like football IQ, he's a little bit of a slow processor in identifying coverage responsibility. And I think that Musgrave could pop one or two catches in this game.
I think he's going to get his catches, but until I see more improvement on the balance type thing, I don't know if he's going to get yak. So yeah, I am going to go under, but it's just going to be he's going to hit like 35 yards, so it's not going to be like a much under. So my last one for our serious ones is over under Micah a half a sack against Hurts. And the reason why I set this like it is because last week the only sack that happened was the McKinney strip sack. Micah does know the Eagles a little bit better, and that should help him out some. But if Hafley reverts back to the defense he put up against the Panthers, then you're not going to get a lot of sacks. You might get the pressure, but you're not going to get the sacks out of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and I agree. I have the over, but like by default, because I just think Micah's going to just win a play, kind of like he did against Pittsburgh. But I don't think I think because of the things you pointed out, I don't believe he's going to have like a great unbelievable game kind of thing, like a Cardinals game. I hope he does, but I just do not trust Hafley in this kind of spot right now. I feel like he's going to double down on it, especially with Hobbs out, and not like, if anything happens to, in his mind, the way he's looking at it is like, I am a bad step away from having to choose between Melton and Haddon at corner in this game. And I think
And
that's
you know
going to
the weird
influence how
thing
he
is,
approaches it.
yeah, and the weird thing is they always tell you a good pass rush can cover bad corners. And we're not seeing that right now because he's not utilizing his good pass rush.
Yep. Like, he just has to reach the point where it's like, just let him be bats out of hell when it's a pass situation. Like, play, like I said, you got to be disciplined this week, but attack. Like, that's the thing, is like it's been a while since we've seen them just attack, attack, attack.
So I'm hoping that we can do the whole reverse jinx thing. And I'm going to say the under just because I'm hoping that that can reverse jinx it and he'll come out with like 3 sacks on the day. So my last one is kind of a goofy one, but I heard it on Lombardi's Bar, and then with all the talk about it in the offseason and all that stuff, over under 6.5 for tush pushes. They were talking about how it's probably going to be only a certain amount, but you got to remember the Packers were the ones that were supposedly leading the charge to have the tush push banned. They have a weak front, or showed a weak front against the Panthers. There is a strong possibility that we will see it more often. So what do you got for over under 6.5?
I'm going over at 8. And okay, and the way I put it is the Packers voted against it, but they're also one of the best teams at stop. They've had decent success at it. I'm also kind of cheating on this because I am including the Eagles ran the fake tush push on them last year, where like Hurts took the snap, stepped back, and tried to throw a go route on top of it. So I'm counting that in there as well because it is out of the tush push look. But I'm saying 8 because so they're gonna have like 8 drives in the game. This game could set the record for least drives if the two teams get rolling on offense because both like to operate at a very deliberate pace if given the opportunity. But you figure the Packers have had this bad habit of allowing teams to like get into third and short. And I can just see Philly being like, any 3rd and 2, we're running it. We're running the tush push. And so the Packers will like stop it once and give it up, stop it once or stop it twice. Kind of like it's going to be one of those kind of things. So I think they're going to get to 8, but it's going to be like, it's going to take like more possessions than people think kind of thing because they're going to go like back to back plays on it and stuff. Also, Sirianni is that kind of guy to be like, oh, you're the one team kind of thing. And like, especially if they're up late, I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers offense can't do shit. I can easily see the Eagles in bleed the clock mode, just be like, we're going to run the tush push 4 plays in a row and fuck you guys kind of thing. So yeah, I can
And
easily
that's
see this
kind
being
of the thought process that I had. I almost set it at like 10.5
there.
just because of that. I do think it's going to be over just because of that simple thing. And I think a couple of times they're going to end up doing it on, you'll see it toward if they have the ball after the 2-minute warning at the first half, you'll see it a little bit more often just for the hell of it. So yeah, I'm going to go over. I'm going to say about 9. I'll say about 9 on it.
Got it. But yeah, so like I said, obviously we would love to have more things to talk about, but you know, the we're still as fans, we're still allowed to like lick our wounds at the talk of Kraft being down. It is such a damper on the season. That said, the Packers still have more than enough talent to not only win this game, but to still go on a run and potentially win the Super Bowl. It's gonna take LaFleur breaking his trends, adjusting his offense, making changes. How fast he's willing to or does do them is going to determine how quickly this offense is able to get rolling against the better defenses. And on defense, Halfley, like it's time. Like let your best players be the best versions of themselves. Don't handcuff your best players on defense because of the worst players on your defense. Like you cannot turn a strength into a weakness because of the verifiable weak points on your defense. Those are the two things that I'm looking forward to most in this game is like, is LaFleur going to adjust or is he going to die by his run game? And on defense, is Halfley going to, I hate to say it, but is he going to play conservative out of like fear or is he going to be the aggressor? Like, is he going to throw the first punch? I hope that both of them take the side of being the aggressor in this game because you're going to need to do it to win this game. I think that if you had Kraft, that you could argue the Packers might have the deeper roster. Without Kraft, I think it slides over to the Eagles just because obviously it depends on if AJ Brown plays, but they're potentially missing a lot of guys right now out of this game. Like Azeez Ojulari is on IR. Nolan Smith, they're opening his practice window, but there's no guarantee that he's going to make it back for this game. Hence why they traded for Jalen Phillips, why they called Brandon Graham out of retirement. So, like I said, if both of those, well, Azeez just went on IR, so he's out. But if Nolan doesn't play, like, go after these guys with the passing game. Like, I get it. You sign Jacobs, but you signed him to complement Love in this passing game, not to be the focal point of your offense. You paid Love all the money you did. You built the offense around him in 2023, and you had it going that way in 24 until he screwed up his knee at the end of week 1. It's time to go back to that. Like, your offense just doesn't run the ball well enough for it not to be. And I know that he's a smart guy and he schemes and all that kind of stuff, but like, there's a lot of smart people who are not with the Packers who have identified that as a flaw, and it's from within the building, and they've got to change that. Joe, you got any last thoughts on this game before we sign off here?
Nothing that I can think of. Not about the game. Obviously, go buy merch, but also we're doing a favor. Go out. If you're ever in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, go visit Clubhouse Sports. John Del Rey's new shop. He's been kind of helping us with some stuff. So we're going to give him as much free advertising as we can give him. So, go, if you're ever in Sheboygan, go visit him. I'd say mention that you heard it on here, but he'd probably charge you double for it. So, he's got a great shop going up. He's got a website that he's starting up here in the next week or two where he's selling sports memorabilia, autographed photos, canvases, helmets, jerseys. He's also got a bunch of non-signed items, but his big draw is pretty much his signed items. So check him out. Clubhouse Sports, Sheboygan, Wisconsin. And like I said, give him a shout.
Yep. And one programming note: we still haven't decided how we're going to handle the post game. If it's going to be a live show or if we're just going to record it, we'll post that either hopefully before the game, but at least during the game or shortly after. Whether the show will be live or either way,
we'll say it right now. It's probably not going to be live.
Okay, sounds good. Either way, I was going to say you're going to be able to hear it on your favorite podcasting apps. Please give us a like and a subscribe. And whether you're able to watch the game through scrupulous or unscrupulous means on Monday, please send us in any questions you may have. We want to hear we want to produce the content you're looking for. The Packers look to get back on track. And hey, if they win this game, they'll stay atop the NFC North. They will go back on top of the NFC conference. It's a big game for the Packers, especially with the rest of the division on their heels. If they lose and the rest of the division wins, they're in third place. So you can't afford to drop this one. That's the cost of blowing these games that you should have won against the Browns and the Panthers. But for Iowa Joe, I'm Mike. Go Pack Go and aloha.
Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for the up. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for who.